All right, folks, we're about to jump into a life-altering presentation here. No joke, okay? Now, the slides you're about to see might be terrifically ugly, but the content is going to be gold and it's going to be life-changing. And you got to understand that I have been helping people heal for the last decade of my life, and that I have gone through a debilitating illness myself. So I know a thing or two when it comes to healing, okay? I know a thing or two when it comes to health. I know a thing or two when it comes to biohacking, detox. I spent millions of dollars in this industry, and I'm not going to sell you anything on this video, okay? I am purely going to teach you what some of my clients would pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for, and you're going to get it for free here, okay? And they're not secrets, right? This is pretty common sense, but a lot of people just don't understand how to actually heal. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of bullshit. And there's a lot of people just simply not going deep enough to actually heal things, right? You can take the world's best supplements. You can have the world's best biohacking devices and machines, but ultimately you have to learn how to actually heal and change your nervous system and change your mind, not just changing your thoughts. I'm talking about healing your brain from all of the neurodegeneration and inflammation, and how to actually take control of your own biology. Okay, so let's get right into it here. All right, so we're going to be talking about how to heal from anything. Okay, guys, so this was actually me, all right here. These were photos of me when I was very ill, and I went through a 4-year illness. I was suicidally depressed. I was anxious, panic attacks, absolute brutally debilitating illness. All right, and before that, I was actually 2010, 2012 BJJ World Champion and Pan American Champion. You can Google me, you can YouTube me, you'll see stuff out there. It's not like I was world famous or anything, because jiu-jitsu back then wasn't as big, but I was the real deal, okay? And all kinds of photos and stuff if you don't believe me. But in any case, what happened is that I essentially went through 3.5, almost 4 years of a debilitating illness, and I came out the other side, okay? Now, here's what separates me, I believe, from a lot of other people out there. First of all, if there's someone else who had gone through what I had gone through, I would say probably 95 to 99% of people who went through that, if they have gone through what I went through, are either dead, in jail, or in a mental institution, or addicted to drugs. Because the level of pain that I went through was so otherworldly, I literally don't know how I survived. Well, I do know. Actually, I'm going to tell you, okay? But the shit that I went through was unbearable, okay? Major panic all day, every day. Extreme depression. Every hour of the day was agony. Couldn't talk, couldn't think, couldn't take a deep breath. Brutal, okay? And eventually, I did a lot of things, okay? I lived in the Amazon jungle. Oh boy, what did I do? I mean, mantras, meditations, yoga, therapy, pharmaceutical drugs, hallucinogens, mushrooms, ayahuasca, acid, peyote, combo, also San Pedro cactus, healers, shamans, all different kinds of new age techniques. Hundreds of self-help books, dozens of conferences, coaches, you name it. I have spent millions, okay? And I completely transformed my life. And this is what's different, guys. I am transformed, okay? Everyone I know who goes through what I went through is still battling things, I can't quite live yet. I'm still dealing with the Lyme. And by the way, I'm not judging them, because that shit is hard. Lyme disease, heavy metal poisoning, that shit is hard. Very hard. But nonetheless, 99% of people I know that go through that level of illness, who are not clients, and I just see them around town, around the internet, interwebs, they're, oh, I'm still battling. Yeah, I'm getting better and better each year, but I'm battling, Lyme never ends, It never ends. One day I'll be able to live. And people who go through this level of illness don't truly start living again. They don't truly start thriving again. They survive. That's the difference, and that's what I'm going to teach you. I'm not teaching you about surviving. I want to teach you how to fucking thrive after you go through this kind of illness, because that's possible. I'm talking about money, vitality, centeredness, health, running a business, traveling the world, having a wife, having a kid, having a life that is beautiful and good. Now, I'm not saying it's like that every minute of every day, but my life is fantabulous. Okay? And there are people who are happier than me. There are people who have way better success than me. But overall, I'm the total package. All right? I'm just half joking there, right? But like, no, overall, my life is really fucking amazing. And if we take all these things into balance of wellness and vitality and having a family and surfing the edge and truth and love and being connected, okay, and having fun and adventure, my life is fucking full in that way. All right? And I'm sure a lot of people do it better than me, but that's what I'm here to teach you. That's what I'm going to pass to you today. That's possible after that level of illness. Okay? So, and not just talking about, not just talking about recovery. I'm talking about going from the depths of hell to building a unbelievable epic life. That level of differential is possible in this lifetime. Okay, so again, not just talking about survival here. If you want to learn about survival and how to survive your illness, go somewhere else. Okay, this is how to thrive. All right, now, by the way, as you'll notice, I am very arrogant, so working on it. Okay, so part of the exploration here with this new style, I was taught to just be myself. Well, that's a problem sometimes. Okay, so essential steps to healing, all right? You can heal from anything, but you must understand what you need to do. You must understand the basics, okay? If you want true health, connection, renewal, if you want your cells to be healthy, happy, you want a good life. Number one, this is the hardest for men, owning where you're at, okay? If you want to know what the opposite of this is, you look at a guy like Liver King. That would be the opposite of owning where you are. What men do, and the Liver King is just a perfect example of what it looks like at the end of the line when it's at an extreme, is, and all people do this, but men especially, is you will basically completely reject your illness, your symptoms, and you will desperately try and get back to the person that you once were. Okay? You will not face your pain. Most people won't face their pain. Most people won't face what's actually going on. And they're just desperately clawing their way back to who they once were. Instead of taking a moment in time saying, wow, I'm exhausted. I'm weak. I'm vulnerable. I need help. I don't know who I am anymore. And I've lost my way. Now, you don't have to be falling on your own sword and being like pathetic of like, I'm terrible. But you do have to understand when you go through an illness for a prolonged period of time that it's just simply real. Like it's not in your head. Like you are going through an illness. It's happening. So you have to be present to it. You have to acknowledge where you truly are. You can't basically scavenge to get to who you once were or just desperately try and get healed today or tomorrow without like understanding that this is where you're at. Why do I say Liver King is the opposite of that? Well, Liver King is exhausted inside somewhere. Liver King is in pain somewhere. Liver King is in agony somewhere. But he only knows strength. And so when you only know strength, you just keep using the tool of being stronger. And eventually you fucking pop like a balloon. Or you go psychotic, you go crazy, your body breaks down. You have too much stress, trauma, and tension because to be strong requires a certain thing you do with your energy, which is, and that skill set can only last so long. And eventually it expires. You need other tools. You need to learn how to let go. You need God. You need trust. You need community. You need love. You need connection. You need to cry. You need to let go. So what I'm saying here is you got to get very real with where you're at. If you are an entrepreneur making millions of dollars, crushing business, you have an amazing girlfriend, you have millions of followers, okay, that's real. You're a badass. And a lot of those people also have major fatigue. They don't know who they are. They are lost inside. They feel a spiritual void. They feel sick when they wake up, tired when they wake up. You're not just one or the other. It's not like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. I'm tired every day. And you're not the boss and the king because you have it all. It's somewhere in the middle. You're both. You're lost and helpless somewhere inside of yourself. You're dominating and winning in another arena. That's what I'm talking about by owning where you're at. You gotta simply own where you're at and be really honest and truthful with yourself. A lot of people lie to themselves. Those types of entrepreneurs, they just refuse to understand how tired and exhausted they are. They just can't face it. And then they'll just be chasing their tail for years to come. Why? Because your home base is the truth. That's your home base. If you don't acknowledge the truth of where you're at, you are on shaky ground. You'll make very poor decisions and you will be ungrounded. Okay? So own where you're at, number one. Then you got to understand that you can't do it alone. Okay? It is very, very hard to heal alone. I know people who go deep into detox and biohacking and they'll literally spend months alone in their apartment with hundreds of thousands of dollars of supplements and biohacking equipment, and they get utterly lost. Because you're not just a physical vessel that you need to turn knobs in order to get more energy and more vitality and heal. Everything needs to be healed and all my metrics and blood work and this and that. That's part of it. But you have a spirit. Okay, you have a spirit and the spirit needs things. The spirit, the human spirit, needs other people, needs connection, needs support. It needs reflection. I don't know if you guys ever had this experience, but there are times when I sometimes maybe won't hang out with friends or I just am like, I haven't seen anyone in a community setting for weeks at a time. And I'm a little bit of a recluse sometimes. And then I'll go out to a party or gathering and then I realize how good I feel about myself based on where other people are at. So like I've done all this work, grinding on my health, doing my meditations, doing my practices, doing my shadow work, working with my coaches. And, a lot of times I just still feel like a piece of shit, right? That's like one of my home bases. It's just like no matter how successful I am, I just feel like I'm not enough, not doing enough, not successful enough, and I'm failing. This is just my standpoint always. It's like a annoying mosquito that I can't get rid of, right? I'm learning. In any case, what was I going with this? I wish I had people live sometimes to help me out. So then I go to the gathering and I talk to people and I understand my own presence and my own work I've done and my own vehicle. I understand it through being in the presence of other people, right? And it's like I go home and I sleep amazing and I'm just like, wow, Josh, you're doing amazing work. Look at where everyone else is at. You get reflection when you're with other people. You get a mirror. You get feedback. Okay? And furthermore, you are utterly full of shit if you're alone all the time. I'm sorry to say. This is going to sound harsh. Okay? You cannot find the deepest truth when you're alone all the time. You will delude yourself. We are masters of delusion. I don't know any humans that can spend months alone and actually face their deepest crevice. I mean, maybe months, right? But let's talk about long-term, years, and actually face their bullshit. Humans, when they're left to their own devices, no matter how masterful they are, they will create stories and protection mechanisms and bubbles to protect themselves. A lot of people, especially in the YouTube world, I know them personally and met them personally and this and that, they're in a complete bubble. It's like, what does that mean? What does being in a bubble mean? All right, well, I'll give you an example. I'm not going to say his name, but I did a coaching session with this guy, okay, paid $3,000 for it. And he was a big YouTuber with like 250,000 subscribers and really, really smart guy, And I did the coaching session and I realized on the session wow, how devoted he was to being the alpha. It was like, wow, it's like, wow, man. And I didn't say it to him, but the most important thing for him on that call was being dominant. It wasn't about connecting. It wasn't about being a good coach. It wasn't about, in his system, it was like, he just needed to like, just run the show and be in control. And he's got millions of dollars and millions of followers and, decent looking guy, good health. And it occurred, no girlfriend, no wife, of course. Always when someone has a bubble, there's always generally speaking, relationship issues, right? But anyway, what I observed, and then I met him in person. I met him in person randomly at a mastermind. And my vision on the coaching session was spot on, because when I met him in person, he was again trying to do the sort of alpha thing. And I just looked at him. I didn't say a word. I just kept my presence. And you could see him melting apart in our conversation. He was falling apart, very weird, just saying weird things, uneasy with himself. And he ended up leaving the mastermind 2 hours later. A 3-day event, he left after spending $25,000. Okay? Now, I'm not saying I was the only cause of that, but what I observed is that people create bubbles for themselves. It's like when you make money, when you're the man, when you have all this attention on YouTube, when you have this and this and that, and especially if you have vitality, if you have a lot of vitality, it's almost even easier to create a bubble because you think, because I'm healthy, therefore I know the truth, always. I feel good, therefore I know the truth. That's bullshit. We all have blind spots. We all have gaping holes. Okay? And so the long story short is I realized that this man was a master at creating his bubble to protect himself from a deep, deep wound, a deep cut that I saw. I just penetrated right through that shit. And I, not even by saying words, I could just feel it in his energy. Okay? And now, again, I'm not the only reason he left. I think he probably had a couple interactions with some other people that went sour. But being in a bubble is not the answer. Okay? Yes, that's better than being sick, to having your own little castle that you're the king of the castle, right? And you just, anything that infiltrates your castle, you're like, nope, I'm the king, I'm the man, and I don't want to change, and I don't want to do the hard work. That's not humility. A person like that could never be a healer. A person like that could never just be super deep with their children, right? It's always a devotion to the character, to the bubble. Okay, and that's not the answer. And you want people in your life that pop your bubble. Trust me, I have several. It's not easy. Sometimes they come at me with something and I'm just like, fuck you, you're wrong. And then all of a sudden, a couple days later, wait a minute, wow, I really am arrogant prick. Okay, I gotta learn how to calm down or be kinder, right? This and that. So the point is that when I say you can't do it alone, I mean a lot of things. I mean that you need support for your healing, practitioners, coaches. You need friends. You need community. And you need people who have permission to pop your bubble. What would it look like in that instance? Well, it would look like that he would, have someone in his life. It couldn't be his client, me. It would have to be someone in his life who says, dude, when I'm in your energy, I am experiencing you as very, very devoted to control and very, very, it seems like your focus is being dominant and being alpha. And it feels like there's not a lot of connection or love, and, I wonder if you could look at that. And he would have to genuinely do the work on that and understand where he's coming from and want to break the bubble. But there's always pain underneath the bubble. Always. The characters we come up with, the control, the mechanisms, always a response to pain. That's why you're not truly sovereign. Even though his whole brand is about sovereignty, well, I would argue he's still a slave to wounds. Okay? So, and again, it's whenever I talk shit about people, it's not because I actually care about the individual. It's because I'm trying to give you guys themes based on my own life. Okay? So, Also, another thing here, another category, your consumption. You want to be very, very careful with what you consume. Okay? From your food, your water, your media, your interactions, your conversations. Most people are way more sensitive than they think they are. Most of my clients, when we get down to brass tacks, are very sensitive, even the really strong ones. They feel a lot. Conversations affect them. Their family affects them. But what happens is we block out that sensitivity, or we numb it, or we're just so numb from all of the digital fragmentation that we don't even feel our sensitivities. Our neurons are just fried with data, right? But chances are, if you spend a lot of time alone or doing hallucinogens or assessing your life, you would have many, many life situations roll through your mind and body again, and being like, wow, that did that to me. Wow, I felt that way. Wow, I didn't know I was so angry at this person, right? Wow, I didn't realize how much A1 dairy is fucking up my life. So yeah, your food, right? The gluten, alcohol, refined sugar, A1 dairy, homogenized, pasteurized dairy. Okay? All of this is trash. Your tap water, trash. You got to learn how to eat properly. Really got to learn how to eat properly. If you want to do a full reset, you should just consider just eating meat and fruit and olive oil for 2 months. Watch what happens. Meat, fruit, olive oil. It's basically all I eat these days. The level of lucidity that comes in when I stick true to my diet is insane. Insane. I feel like I have a fucking 10,000 gigahertz processing computer that moves faster than I can move. This thing literally moves so fast. Sometimes I'm just having to calm the fuck down and ground in. This is my biggest battle right now. I'll tell you my biggest battles right now. It's digital addiction, which feels like it comes from my mind. My heart, my soul doesn't care about any of this shit. My mind just loves these notifications, right? This digital stuff. And then this thing, also the speed at which this thing moves. I always had it my whole life, but sometimes it gets even more and more pronounced with detox, because it gets clearer and healthier and more vitality in this organ. And then this organ is just like in a million places at once. And I literally have to like put my feet on the ground and be like, ground in the body, dude. Right? Now, it's not that extreme. I'm being a little dramatic, but because I have practices and I center myself, and my whole brand is about centering yourself. But it's a constant battle of like a wild horse that I have to tame and I have to be present to. Okay? So, also TV. Just watch what you watch. Like, if you ever done a fast, like a 3 or 5 day fast, and you watch shitty things on TV, oh my goodness, that stuff will be right with you in your dreams. You'll feel it in your field for like 24 hours or more. I've watched content online that I can't shake. Certain murder things and murder mysteries, and then all of a sudden, I still to this day will be in a certain location, and I'll be like, oh my God, what if this happens just like the movie, just like the crime documentary? It's like, it's still in my nervous system. Right? So you want to put the right consumption in. That's a big conversation. And then when you put in the right consumption, so we're talking about the right minerals, the right nutrients, the right food, the right water, the right conversations. Hey, let's talk about conversations for a minute, ladies and gents. Right? By the way, I'm going to need your feedback, right? Is it better if I were to look directly at the camera? Because I can move the camera to be right above my screen. Would that better? Does that matter? Let me know what you enjoy, what gets you going. Okay? So, let's talk about conversations. All right? And what time is it here? Okay. We're good. Let's talk about conversations. Most people don't realize how many shitty relationships they have, or obligations. Like, guys, I don't do obligations anymore. My life, I don't do things because I'm supposed to or because I have to or because I was told I had to do it or because society told me or my dad told me or I should do this or I should do that. That doesn't really exist for me anymore. And I always say that the simplest example of where people lose their boundaries and lose their health is like when someone hands you a flyer on the street and you know you don't want it, but you take it anyway because you feel bad about saying no. Like, how many instances do you know you don't want the thing? Whether it's small or large or an invite or this or that, and you just have such a hard time. Your natural number one mechanism is, okay, thank you. I'll get back to you. Right? Like yesterday, I was at the car dealership because I was thinking about buying a new car, and you could tell they wanted me to sign it that day. And I just looked at them and said, I'm not buying this car today. I was like, there's no chance I'm buying the car today. And then they completely backed up because I drew that boundary. Other people and people who haven't done work on boundaries could get sucked into things, roped into things. There's all of these situations, like even, there's people on the street, the Krishna, right? They give you a flower and then they give you a little flower and then they expect a donation because they've given you a flower. And so many people give them donations because they're like, oh my God, but she gave me a flower, right? Or the flyer situation, or, so many situations, where you just think on your day-to-day life where you say yes, but the answer is no. And that sacred no, is like, wow, when you plug that hole, holy shit, does your health improve. Okay? Also, detoxification. You must detoxify. If you are not detoxifying, you are completely and utterly missing out on, like, literally, I don't even know exactly. You are like, how can I summarize this if you're not on an active cleansing, detoxifying journey in this life? I would equate it to that you are on a boat and you have about 5,000 pounds of trash and shit and old rotting corpses and dead energy in the hull of your ship. Okay? And drugs and toxins. Like you have a beautiful ship, and on the inside of that ship is just rotting corpses everywhere. And you're just like, man, everyone is passing me. Man, all these boats are getting to the destination faster. And these boats are just so much smoother at riding this terrain and navigating life. I wonder if it's the 700 corpses I have in the boat underneath. And why does it smell so bad? I wonder if that smell has anything to do with the corpses. Okay? The average person's cells are just starving for nutrients, starving for the correct electricity, and have so many metals and chemicals, latched onto the cell instead of the proper minerals and the proper electricity. So, you got to do heavy metal detox, parasite detox, gut healing, chemical detox. Start doing coffee enemas. Start drinking distilled water. Start taking iodine, glutathione. There's so many things you can do, but you gotta start taking broccoli sprout extract. Go to my Detox Dude's website. Start buying some of that shit, or buy it on Amazon. I don't care. Okay, but you definitely are going to need to. You're definitely going to need to detoxify. Okay. I'll make a whole video on it, obviously. That's what this channel is about. But biohacking isn't enough. Biohacking is not enough. You must cleanse your colon. You must cleanse your liver. You must cleanse your cells. Mission critical if you have any sort of illness, mental or physical. Okay? Now, all of these things we talked about, you need more. You need more. You need daily movement. You need daily practices, and you need to release trauma. You need to learn how to release trauma, stress, and tension. Okay? So it doesn't really matter what the practice is as long as you do it every day consistently, and as long as your practice brings you to the present moment. For me, I love sitting for 10 minutes or 20 minutes in meditation. It's a game changer. I need to move my body every day. I need to sweat, walk, lift, breathe. I need to create chemical state shifts. Okay? And you're not going to think your way out of your despair. So you can be in despair and you can think, but I have this, but I have that, but I should be grateful, but I should be that. You have to actually change your state chemically, biologically, spiritually, emotionally. You got to learn how to change your state. Learning how to change your state effectively is a major lesson in this lifetime. The people who are depressed all the time, they just don't know how to get out of that state. Whether it's because they're too toxic or because their relationships are shit or because their life is in the toilet or whatever, their feedback loop of how they feel and how life's hitting them just keeps them there, right? So you have to learn how to okay, wow, I am miserable and depressed right now. I got to change my state. Maybe that's going and doing a hallucinogen. That's why people do it. They need to change their state. There's so much agony in their normal waking consciousness. They just need something to see a different angle, right? That's why a lot of people do it. Not everyone. Changing your state can be exercise. Changing your state can be shaking, yelling, screaming, crying. Now, granted, you generally want true guidance when it comes to trauma release. Like if you just were, for me now of years of doing the work, I can just shake my body and maybe make some noise and jump on a rebounder, and that's going to release something. But if you're new to the journey, that's only going to release a certain level. You still need to get deep inside of yourself, generally with the guidance of a practitioner, to feel these core wounds that keep allowing life to play out in the same way. See, the thing is, your samskaras, your wounds, this is how it works, right? Just the general vibe here is you have wounds, samskaras, and pains from this life and other lifetimes. And that's like your core pain. Okay, it's just your core pain. No matter what you do, there's always just this core pain of being a human being. Okay? Now, obviously, over time, you want to loosen that thing up and it lets go of its hold. But what happens is you have all these layers on top of that core pain. You have the shitty relationships, you have the traumas, the stress, the tension, you have the toxins, you have life hitting you every day. And then your core wounds get activated and you always make it about the thing. Johnny said this about me. Well, if you want to really do deep work, you source it back to the source and you think, okay, what does this remind me of? My mother, my father, my sister, my brother when I was younger. And that's how you do deep sourcing work versus always blaming your external circumstances. So those core wounds, yeah, you can't. It's hard to work on them when you have all these layers of shit and corpses in the dead bodies underneath in the boat. But when you start doing this other work, you're eventually going to be presented with your core stuff. Everyone has different flavors. Okay, and so you got to learn how to create separation from your wounds if you want health and if you want sovereignty and if you want to heal. A lot of times people will have depression, but the depression is just an external secondary effect to deep internal wounds that they're not looking at. Because when you're in your mind all the time and you look at life from an analytical perspective and you're taking pharmaceuticals to heal your biochemical imbalance, you're not addressing the entire body, which is filled with traumas, stress, toxins, and stored pent-up energy, right? Repressed energy and repressed emotions. So you have to learn how to go inside. You have to, if you want to heal from illnesses, if you want sovereignty. Okay? So energetic work, there's a lot of different techniques out there. And there's a couple schools that I've participated in that are mind-blowing and amazing. But ultimately, you got to see for yourself, know for yourself, and you got to find the right practice. Okay? But encouraging you to find a school with integrity that allows you to go into your wounds, right? We run Spirit of a Man retreats. We have one coming up in 4 weeks in California. If you want to do this kind of work, that's what that retreat is for. If you're a man and you want to do this kind of work, that's what that retreat is for. If you want to stop thinking it's about all your external circumstances and you want to actually feel what's inside of you, irrespective of what's on the outside. It's always there. It's a festering wound that a lot of people have. They have no idea how deep it is. And I've seen it time and time again, even with elite athletes, Navy SEALs, etc. And they always think it's something on the outside, or they think it's a chemical imbalance, or they think they need more supplements. Okay? So that's how that works. Okay? If you're broken somewhere, this is what you got going on. Your deep, energetic samskaras from many, many lifetimes and your childhood. And then you have layer upon layer upon layer of stress, trauma, toxins, wounds, repressed emotions, preventing you from doing the deep work, keeping you stuck in sick patterns, and preventing you from feeling God and feeling yourself. Okay, and this is my observation of all illnesses in the world. That's honest. That's my genuine observation. I don't have the authority to say that as ultimate truth, but that's what I feel. You got leaky gut, chemicals, heavy metals, toxins, parasites. Okay. You got viruses, mineral deficiencies, stress, trauma, tension, and deep energetic samskaras. This is the reason for all sickness. Full stop. And relationship to self. And we'll just add in, throw in boundaries, right? Boundaries as part of the whole relationships to self thing, and as part of the whole part of the toxins can be relational. Okay? So that's really all I got for you right now. Okay? I do hope you enjoyed that show. Let's get the eCam going here. So let's switch back to this, right? I hope you enjoyed that. 36 minutes. Let me know what you think. I'm going to be making more videos like this if you guys approve. And yeah, I will catch you in the next video. Peace.